Welcome back to Energy First with Sarah and Jen. Just want to give a little bit of a background of what the podcast really centers on. We concentrate on education. So education that leads to careers within the oil and gas industry. We center on education in regards to educating the general public about what it is that we do in our industry. We center on legislation, so legislation that has already been passed that affects our industry, or legislation that is coming up that could affect our industry. And then last but not least, and in fact, most importantly, we talk to the people in the industry and talk about the people that make this the industry that it is. Really quickly, we want to give a shout out to our current sponsors. We are constantly taking support. Obviously, it does take support to produce this and get the good word out. Our current sponsors are Deep Well Services. Thank you very much, Mark and John and the rest of the guys over there. Women's Energy Network, Pittsburgh chapter. They're big fans of ours and super big supporters. They have asked us to come in and see the Boots and Ball Gowns event that they hold down at the Westin in August, which will be super exciting when we're honoring some of the most important women within the energy sector. And then our newest platinum sponsor is Macuso's Services. Thank you guys absolutely so much for supporting the podcast. All of the information for these sponsors will very soon be up on the website, so please go and check them out. We periodically post about our sponsors as well, so please, by all means, take a look at them and see all of the services and things that they're providing to our industry. And I think I'm going to pass it over to Sarah this time to do introductions for our special guest.
This is Greg Kozera. So about a year ago, I really started being an energy advocate and really getting into it and realizing like all of these amazing facts about our industry. And Greg Kozera has been probably my top mentor as far as educating me.
Aww.
Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and throw the one fact out there. The first fact that you taught me. So if West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania was its own country, it would be the third most natural gas producing country in the world, followed by the United States, the rest of the United States. That would be number one. And number two would be Russia. So Greg Kozera taught me that. He works for Shale Crescent, and we'll go into that later. But yeah, so Greg, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, the beginnings of your career?
40 plus years in the oil and gas industry. Worked for Halliburton for 34 years, started in Michigan, met my lovely wife and now business partner. And I was a fracker. We cemented wells, we fracked them, and got transferred to Ohio and did some work here in the Pittsburgh area and retired from the industry. I worked for after leaving Halliburton, I worked for a year for a drilling company, Targe Energy, out of Aspinwall, PA, right here in the Pittsburgh area for a year, and then worked with Superior Well Services, who became Neighbors Pumping Services, who became C&J, and then I retired in 2016. And a guy by the name of Jerry James, president of Artex Oil, knew that my background was I was a manager, an engineer, but I also did a lot of work with sales and marketing. And he said, we need your help. And Shale Crescent we're a nonprofit, we're an economic development, marketing, and research organization. And our whole goal is to create high-wage jobs in this region, West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, that we had to rebrand it because with the high-tech work we're doing, when you start talking about Appalachia, that doesn't conjure up anything high-tech. Mm-hmm. And when you say Northeast, nobody wants to be in New York or Boston. So, I mean, that's why we needed a new brand. And these three states that's what we branded, and it's stuck, thank goodness. But the beauty of it is this old Rust Belt, the reason we became the Rust Belt, a lot of folks may not realize, was when we lost our energy is when we lost those manufacturing jobs. And so, 40 years in the oil and gas industry, our whole goal was to produce the gas. We never really thought much about what happened to it after that. And I think hopefully what we'll be sharing today is the real opportunity now that this region has. Like you said, sir, can you imagine the number 3 natural gas producing country in the world made up of these 3 states? It's phenomenal. And there's 3 major, and Marcellus Shale Coalition put this out, but absolutely true. there's 3 big gas fields. One's in, I think it's Qatar and Iran. The other 2 are the Marcellus and the Utica. Can you imagine where we sit today? We are on top of the largest.
Exciting.
It is.
Yeah,
and
it's exciting.
Now I started.
I'm proud of it.
When I started in the industry in the 70s, we were a joke. I mean, we would go to big Halliburton meetings down in Houston or in Dallas, and we'd talk about all our rigs, and the Texans and the Oklahomans would look at us, and they'd say, no, you guys don't have rigs. We call those service rigs. So just go sit down and be quiet.
I love it.
We were like an afterthought.
We were.
Right?
And we produced, back in those days, we were making, even up to about 2009, only 3% of the nation's gas supply
That's crazy.
was from here.
So what year was that?
It was 2008, 2009.
Right. Okay.
Which is relatively recent in
Yeah.
the past, if you think about it,
Well,
right?
when you look at the energy crisis, what do we have? And the thing that, I date myself a little bit, but when you think about it, you guys probably don't remember an energy crisis. You certainly don't remember the Arab oil embargo. I mean, those are things that we lived with, and we didn't have, in Ohio, where we lived in Worcester for a number of years, in a cold winter, there were curtailments, and the first things that got shut down were schools and factories.
Wait, I wanted to go back. So in 2008, 2009, we only produced 3% of the natural gas in the nation.
Entire
correct?
country.
What is it now?
33%.
Right.
Can you imagine?
Since 2008 to 2023, right? 2022, maybe.
So we're the only basin, I think I saw this at a Doug East thing, we're the only basin that's projected to grow by 2050.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is,
In the United States, sorry.
in the United States, and really the rest of the world's struggling too. I mean, that's why the Arabs are looking for other sources of revenue. I mean, that's so. And this field is so. When we began to see it as an engineer, and I was in the marketing work for Halliburton, and we could see the beginnings. Matter of fact, I remember doing one of our team meetings, and I brought up this big dinosaur, and we were talking about coal and coal bed methane, the gas that comes from coal. And I put this brontosaurus or whatever they call them now, and I said, "This is the shale," never realizing that I was probably underestimating what the shale's worth. I mean, that's phenomenal. And when you think about what we're doing today as an industry, 2008, I was working for Superior. We were drilling down 8,000 feet into the Marcellus and drilling out 3,000. That took 45 days. Can you imagine that I'm sitting next to a guy from SWN there was an energy day there in Wheeling, and I mentioned, I said, you guys are doing 24,000 feet horizontal, and he said, that was true. He said, we're out to 30,000.
Oh yeah, and in days, right? Like days.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine what we are capable of as an industry?
It's miraculous.
Right. Now,
people don't understand. It's like more complicated than rocket science. This is miles down the road.
So two things, I had not an argument, but a discussion. I think I mentioned this in one of the previous podcasts with somebody that was saying, we really only have enough energy under our feet for the next 15 years. That's what's been published, or whatever the case may be. I said, listen, 10, 15 years ago, we had no clue the gas that we're currently accessing now, and it'll be exactly the same again in 15 years, right?
Absolutely.
It just because we haven't accessed it yet doesn't mean that it's not there. And I think people completely miss that point.
They think about it. It's today's technology.
Correct.
And can you imagine we went from
3%
to 33%.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's changed, and it's in the little flip books that we put out here, is
You guys need those flip books. They're cool.
Reach out to our website, shalecrescentusa.com.
We'll put it on this episode, actually. So
it's awesome. But when you look at what our capabilities are, we went from, I think right now the number I think we have in here, I think it's 80. If you look at this one graph we were looking at, 33, we're talking about 34% of the nation's gas, but the increase is phenomenal. I mean, if you when you look at this book, this is the growth in supply. It's all here. It's not Texas. It's not Alaska. It's this region is the only place, to your point, that's growing. And the prediction that we've seen for, I think it was Department of Energy, was showing this region producing 40% of the nation's gas
So,
supply.
like, I think a lot of times when people hear that, it's in one ear and out the other because they don't understand the implications behind producing natural gas and how, ubiquitous it is and how everything that we have is made out of, hydrocarbons and natural gas. But we're going to get into that later. I wanted to ask you, what is the tie between manufacturing and oil and gas?
Oh, great question, Sarah. Great question. And it's really natural gas. Oil is a transportation fuel, but natural gas is the fuel of industry. That's why Shell's here. I mean, that was one of the things at Shell Crescent. We put out Shell figured it out before we did, but we did a study with IHS Markit, big international company. We sensed that we had a real economic advantage here. But who are we? We're a small nonprofit in Marietta, and our goal was to market the region, to bring companies to the region and the states, hopefully take care of their business. But we needed something, and me saying it, or Jerry James, president of Artex Oil, saying it wasn't going to cut it. So we did a study with IHS and said, compare this region to the Gulf Coast. That's the gold standard. That's where they expanded. And I get this call. We did that in July. I get this call in October. The VP of IHS Markit calls, and he said, Greg, we thought you might have a small advantage. We had no idea it would be this big. And the bottom line is, if you build a cracker here, like Shell did, you are 4 times more profitable than one built on the Gulf Coast. Now, that's not if you're...
What's the purpose of a cracker?
Cracker takes the ethane and cracks it, and basically, bottom line is, like, Shell's producing polyethylene.
Right.
And polyethylene
Plastics.
makes my jacket.
Plastic pellets
right.
for everything.
For everything. But here is the thing we didn't know that IHS Markit did, is 70% of the polyethylene demand, so that's the people that use that polyethylene.
For manufacturing purposes.
For manufacturing. They turn it into, whether it's a bottle or fibers for my jacket or a bumper for your car. 70% of the people that do that are located where? Here. Right here.
Yeah.
So what's going on today? And that
Think about how much logistics that cuts down on, right? So we're going to talk about the effects on the environment. If you keep all of this stuff logistically and correctly placed, it's again another thing that we're doing that's better for the environment. We're not shipping it across the country, right? Which is what we would be doing in the Gulf.
And you think about back in, let's say 2007, what was going on here. In the summertime, we used the wells, the conventional wells, to produce gas and heat our homes, whatever. But during the summer, all of the gas, we live on top of a gas storage field. There's a whole bunch of them here in Pennsylvania. They were piping gas from the Gulf Coast to here in those pipelines that were built during World War II. All the gas come up here. They stuck it underground. And then in the wintertime, we sucked it out to heat our homes. Well, now we're shipping gas in 4 directions from here. We're shipping it north to Canada. And by the way, there's an industrial complex a lot of people may not realize in Sarnia, Ontario. They have companies
Fed by our gas.
Fed by our gas and fed by our NGLs. Our ethane is going in pipes. That's the natural gas liquids. They get the ethane that is produced along with the natural gas is sent to Canada for their petrochemical. They have crackers up there that they're making products with. It goes west to places like Chicago and Minneapolis and whatever. It goes east to the eastern coast cities, but it also goes to Cove Point, Maryland, that's natural gas liquids, and that goes to Japan and India. And when people talk about the environment, I'm an absolute environmentalist.
We all are.
We really are. And there was a program, a lot of people may not realize, it was probably in 5 years ago, plus or minus. And it really, Lynn and I, we got 3 kids. We've got 8 grandkids.
Congratulations, guys.
And we got
That's
a great-grandchild on the way.
Aww.
That, in fact, later this month.
Linda's crocheting a scarf over there. She is. For the grandkids.
I pinch myself. It's hard to imagine. And I got, I still, until I got injured a few years ago, I was able to play my grandson there that's having this grandbaby. It's been 4 years ago. He said, Grandpa, we were down there for the Virginia Oil and Gas meeting. And he said, look, our indoor team is short players.
Oh, you're kidding me.
He said, will you come out and play with us tomorrow night?
I love it.
And I said, well, CJ, I'm a little old. I mean, I was really worried. Not that I'd get hurt, but I was afraid I'd lose the game for them. And And he said, we've got some old guys. Well, they had an old guy. Their quote captain was 40 years old. Oh. And I said, that's old. But anyway, the coolest thing is we won the game, but at the last 3 minutes, I got to play with my grandson and his wife.
That's
and
cool.
the three of us were playing defense. So it's like, thank gosh. The real message is when you have opportunity, you got to seize it then, because little did I know
that you're going to get injured.
I got injured that fall. I was playing adult soccer, and I ruptured. Nobody knows how we did it. I ruptured both quads. So this one, she'll let me coach. I'm still coaching high school, but she said, "You're not playing again."
Right? Good.
I can understand.
That's why we have wives.
I can understand that.
So, but the point is that's the you got to take care of those. Just like now, we have opportunity with all this gas and the liquids. And to your point, that's where all these products come from. So can you imagine 70% of the people that use that product, and we were shipping it in 4 directions. I got away from the Cove Point gas. Really hit home with me with this NPR program is they said in New Delhi, 50% of the school-age kids had COPD because the air was so bad.
Yeah, particulate matter.
Yes.
3 million deaths per year. Greg,
These are children. That's,
right.
And
it focuses on children and women, and we could go back to that, but I have to ask you the most interesting story that I've heard. You told me yesterday. I have to ask you about it, right? So in World War II, how did 46 American roughnecks win the war?
Everybody in the oil and gas industry, Americans all need to know that. But if you're in oil and gas, you darn well better know that. Now, I didn't. And Jerry James is a historian. He knew it. But there's a documentary that came out last year. PBS ran it. Now, I've got a link. I'll send you guys.
Please,
Yeah.
I would love to.
And it's called Sherwood Forest. Now, the only thing I did a radio show out in Elk City, Oklahoma, and this guy heard me, and we're talking to him about some other things that they've got going on. But he sent me a link. He said, "Did you ever hear about Sherwood Forest?" And I said, "Yeah, that's Robin Hood and his merry men."
That's my first.
He said, "Well, yeah."
I didn't know.
But I watched the whole thing. And what happened is World War II was really over oil. And if you think about it, we had oil and gas here. England had some oil and gas. Hitler was trying to run an army, and that's why he was attacking places like Africa and the Middle East to try to get the oil that he needed to run his war machine. But we couldn't get oil to Europe because the German U-boats, it was all being produced in, again, we weren't the big oil producer then. It was Texas and Oklahoma. So what'd they do? We didn't have those pipelines built yet. So they put it on boats. What do you think the Germans did? They sank those darn boats. Eventually, we built the pipelines, but that didn't get it to England where they needed it. And the English Air Force was being taken out. I mean, they needed fuel, and they didn't have it. And there's a little oil field in Sherwood Forest, and there was an Englishman, I don't remember his name, it's in the film. He flew over here and went to Oklahoma and approached, there was one of the big producers out there, and was trying to get rigs to go over there and drill. And the guy said, "Look," he said, "we're fighting." This was in 43. He said, "We're fighting, Japan. We got a war in Europe. We can't."
All the manufacturing that was increasing during the war here.
We just
they
can't
had
do
to,
it.
yeah.
And he said, "Look, is there any way you can at least send us a couple rigs?" And they scrounged up 2 rigs. And he said, "Look, you're on your own for help." He said, "I'll give you some names and whatever." They scrounged up 46 roughnecks. And this was top secret. They couldn't tell anybody because the real fear was Hitler had spies.
Well, they would
everywhere.
blow up the entire forest trying to stop them,
Exactly.
I would imagine, correct?
And these 46 roughnecks and those 2 rigs went over there, and they stayed in a monastery outside of Sherwood Forest, a little town.
Listen, I lived in Scotland for 14 years, and I did not know this story, and I'm so mad because I would have gone and visited it.
Oh, it's amazing.
We still can.
Yeah.
And here's
Field
what they
trip.
told the people of the town. They said, "Well, these Americans, 46 Americans show up in your town.
No,
you got to wonder what's going on."
Correction, Greg. 46 American roughnecks
Yeah.
show up in your town. That's totally different, right?
So what are these guys doing here? And they said, "They're making a John Wayne movie."
Oh, no way!
and so, but they painted the rigs green
To disguise them.
to disguise them. But here's the real message for all of us in the industry, and even for those in leadership in companies. Doesn't matter whether you're in oil and gas or not. But those companies in the English oil companies were top-down run. In other words, the CEO, the C-suite made the decisions, and those in our industry understand they were required. Their procedure was every 30 feet they had to change out drill bits. Now, can you imagine?
Wow.
Can you imagine what it takes to change out a drill bit? You're running,
Yeah.
and every 30 feet. Of course, the American companies are run first. Who are you going to talk to?
So that's time consuming when you change out a drill bit,
heck
right? Because you have to pull the tubing, right? Which is how many feet long?
Oh,
then you have to
several
change.
thousand
So
feet.
the drill bit is just this piece of equipment at the bottom that drills a pipe, right? Like a lot of people don't know what that
This
means.
one. I got the necklace.
Yeah, show it. Can you do a close up of her necklace?
So yeah, that's the drill bit, and the drill bit
Very
does wear,
inefficient
and
to
it
drill
wears,
it out
and the drill
every
bit does
30
wear out eventually.
Oh, yeah.
But the difference is that in the English system, British system, the decision was made way up here when to
By
change that
people who
drill
have
bit.
no
Not
idea.
the company man on
who
site.
didn't work.
Yeah.
And who makes the
field. Yeah.
decision here? It's the tool pusher. It's
Yeah.
the guys. It's the driller looks at that and said, "It's time." So the first thing they do is they go out there, and the goal was this guy finally got the 46 Roughnecks and the 2 rigs, and it was taking Britain 5 weeks to drill 1 well. Their goal for the Americans was to drill 100 wells in a year.
Oh my gosh.
Because they needed the oil. They knew that's
Yeah.
what they were going to have. Because we couldn't even get oil to England at that time because the Germans were still sinking our ships. So now all of a sudden, the first report comes back that the Americans drilled 1,000 feet in a day, and these guys are saying,
How is this going?
no. They're saying that's erroneous. That had to be 10 feet. I mean, there's no way that they could do that. You don't change the drill bit out. You keep drilling. But the difference is when the field people make the decision, let's face it,
Yeah.
46, there's not a hotline to Oklahoma. Who's making those calls? It's those 46 guys out there.
Yeah.
So can you imagine what happened when all of a sudden we start kicking butt? And there was the whole story goes into, there are all kinds of logistics issues, mainly getting these guys food because food's rationed, the whole thing. But what had happened,
Listen, the Roughnecks I know would just be eating squirrels, so I don't know what you're talking about.
well, they didn't like him. They didn't like him to kill animals over there but they did that. They actually did.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
There was part of the story is
kill
this guy
animals?
was killing grouse.
I'm sure.
And they had they caught him. One of the British bobbies or something caught him, and they want to put this guy in jail. And so they had to figure, well, no, we can't afford that to happen. So they finally had some.
They were cowboys. That's what cowboys do.
You know what I find most interesting about this story, though, is this is an actual illustration of the position that we could put ourselves in this country if we allow our energy independence to leave us from a national security perspective. So if we are not producing this here to the level that we need to, goodness forbid the poo hits the fan and we need it here and we are not prepared to do it because you can't just turn that tap off and on. You've got to drill those wells. You've got to complete those wells. You've got to start producing those wells. And the more we hold this back, I mean, look what happened over there. They weren't prepared for
and
it.
an army runs on.
Correct.
Our grandson was in the Marines, and I'm sitting next to there was a staff sergeant at his graduation, and we got to talking about logistics. And he said, Greg, an army runs on logistics. You got to get food, you got to get water, you got to get munitions, you got to get energy to those frontline people.
So what we're going to do is we're going to change out everything that they have for electric vehicles, and then they can be in the desert and they can try and find somewhere to plug it in when they're trying to get the food out to the soldiers. You know what I mean? That seems sensible.
Yeah, but
That's viable.
One thing that I was thinking of, so you told me that story yesterday and it blew up my mind. But today when you just told that story, Europe is in a vulnerable position now.
Yes.
So history can repeat itself very easily.
Well, that's what really-
and we're setting ourselves up to do exactly what we did
Correct.
before. And then they're going to get panicky and come back here and get 1,000 roughnecks and then
Well, that's
go
what's
back
happening.
over there.
Well, that's what's crazy now is they lived this. And
And we're not talking again that long ago.
no.
Right?
But I think what happens is that older generation, there's people
Yeah.
that deny the Holocaust.
Sure.
So you have that. But here's the cool part. The rest of the story is we drilled 106 wells
In a year?
in a year. American ingenuity, it wasn't so much the technology, it was that the leadership that was
Leadership skill set,
the leadership was on
experience.
location.
Work
It
ethic.
wasn't in some Ivy Tower in London or in the Middle East, just like it wasn't in Oklahoma City. But here's the rest of the story. The oil, most of the oil that they used for D-Day came from Sherwood Forest.
That's crazy.
Not only did
it
they
gives
feel
me chills. Like literally, I got chills.
But here's the other thing I didn't even know. When in D-Day, one of the things they did that the first time I'd ever heard it is they actually, when those troops went over, they took a pipeline with them. So they actually have a pipeline at that point where that oil wasn't just staying in England and being boated over. They had a pipeline that was taking that oil from England, from Sherwood Forest into France. Can you imagine what that means for the Allied forces to have their oil, their fuel right there?
Physically there.
The ghosts of the 46 Roughnecks need to come back and haunt the people who are opposing the pipelines right now.
Oh my God! Well, and the thing is, I've been to some of these conferences. I've spoke at them, and the European. I think again, we're talking about a younger generation here that doesn't remember World War II. But one of the things, this gentleman from a French company stood up and he said, "We're not worried about. We don't need Russian gas because." In 5 to 10 years, everybody in Europe is going to be driving an electric car.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm thinking, this guy's a CEO. And fortunately, one of his high-level managers, she was sitting at my table, and I says, does your boss begin to understand two things? A, where's the electrons going to come from? But B, does he know that to do what he just said, we need more cobalt, which comes from the Congo and China. We need more graphite. Comes from China, almost all of it. We need rare earths that come from China. We need lithium. And to get all those products, do you know what that's going to mean to those countries? We got children, and it was in a recent article. I'm trying to remember, it's Amnesty International or something. They estimated, and I don't know if they're right or not, but they were talking 20 to 40,000 kids are mining cobalt now.
It is literally what we had in our coal mines, but we're talking... long time ago.
Well,
we're reverting back to that.
If we had 10-year-old kids on well sites,
oh gosh,
that people would have a fit.
But it's okay because it's not our backyard.
Well, and we got radioactive. They're creating radioactive lakes in China now. If we really care about the planet, and I think most people
and our
do,
people,
is it okay? Because that's when I told this manager that, she looked at me and she was horrified. She said, "We had no idea." I mean, you can look at that electric car, and there's nothing wrong with electric cars. Don't get me wrong. You can look at that. We were at a church thing, and I was talking to this gentleman. He was big on climate change, and that's fine. And I said, but Lonnie, that solar panel on the church roof, you see clean, green energy, and it can be. But I said, I see dead Chinese because I know where it came from. It was made in China. It was made using rare earths, and we got people living around radioactive lakes. And is that okay? For that to happen, and we can feel good about ourselves because we're green. No,
Trisha.
I mean we need to suck it up and think about everything. What happens, and to your point, the beauty of what's going on now, and that's what our latest study we did with Jobs Ohio showed, is because the energy's here, because the demand for polyethylene, 70% of that is here. Then the beauty of that is we have the energy, we have the feedstock. And half the U.S. population here, the demand for all these products is right here. One of the only places that we know on planet Earth where a company can come, like Shell just did, and build on top of their energy and feedstock and in the middle of their customers. They have probably 500 miles in transportation. If you buy this from China, made with Middle East oil, and ship it halfway around the world to us, how does that make sense?
Yeah,
and so that's the beauty of what we literally can measure what we're doing. Good friend of mine, Doug Ritchie, Star Plastics, down in West Virginia, he employs almost 500 people. And I coach his 4 nephews, and one of them still coaching high school with us. And we've been coaching Doug during the pandemic. He was getting a lot of his feedstock from China. He cut them off and found regional suppliers. And then he started making ventilator parts.
Well, didn't you say, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to
you're
interrupt
fine.
you. So not only are we cutting off these manufacturers from China, we're having an influx of other countries wanting to manufacture here, right?
Absolutely. And who do you think wants to come?
India,
but the Europeans too. We had a comment. Matter of fact, your friend from the sand
Frank.
Frank.
What is his last name? Zappa.
From what company?
Mandy's cousin.
It's
Really likable Frank.
But he's in the sand. He's in the sand
Sorry.
business, glass sand. We had a Turkish company approach us at Select USA last year, and they said, we want to come to the United States. And I said, well, just tell me, why do you want to come? He said, well, we have operations in Russia and Ukraine. And I'm thinking, you mean had, don't you? Because can you imagine?
Yeah.
And he said 40% of their gas, where their home country is coming from Russia. So he's worried in a glass situation, you ever lose your supply for even a day and that glass solidifies, you're done. It's over. Mm-hmm. And this was the biggest area. You look throughout West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania. We were in the glass business. That was one of the big industries in the 1800s. Why? We had the sand, we had the water, we had the demand, and we had the gas. Mm-hmm. And when we lost that, we lost glass and eventually petrochemicals. But now we've got this company that said, we want to come. Here's how much gas we need. Can you give us this much gas for 20 years? I said, no problem.
Yeah.
And so why would they want to come here? They got the gas, the sand's here already, all their other minerals are here, and the customers are here. Mm-hmm. Why would you not want to be here? And that's
you're
what
not
we're saying.
even touching on the fact that it's the best thing for the individuals that are employed. There's clean conditions, safe conditions, all of those types of things here,
This
right?
isn't your grandfather's manufacturing.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. We have to adhere to certain standards. It's completely different. So from even an ESG perspective, it makes sense for them to have manufacturing here in the United States.
Right. And one of the things I tell them, because they do want to have a renewable component, and I said, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. We take advantage of the wind, take advantage of the sun, use it, but understand that tonight at 10 o'clock, not a single one of your electrons is going to be coming from wind and solar. Mm-hmm. So use it during the day, but understand that if you come here, and this is what our government should be pushing, I'm not sure they understand it, but at the end of the day, the strength of this region is if you want to use renewables, take advantage of them, use them, but know that you have guaranteed energy 24/7, 365. That's what they don't have in Europe. When the wind didn't quite blow as strong as they predicted, all of a sudden they needed to use natural gas.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we have blackouts here every 6 seconds in our country.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I think I read that from EQT, I think, one of their LinkedIn posts.
And the thing is, there's no reason for that. We have, not from an energy. Now, where I live, in West Virginia, if there's a big storm, blows a bunch of trees in my power line.
Mine will go down for 6 days. It is what it is, right?
But here's what bothers me is we all, as Americans, we're smart enough to figure out we need a backup source.
That's why God made light plants. They have great second power sources. That's what Jen uses.
Well, containment. We live on top of a gas storage field, Cocoa Storage, there in Charleston, and our house was built during the 80s when gas wasn't available. So we have an all-electric house.
Wow.
Now, what we do have, I have a gas grill. So when the power goes down for a week, I can cook. And we have, if it's wintertime, we got a wood fireplace. That's my backup. But why would anybody want to have 100% electricity knowing that, can you imagine if we were running electric vehicles, if I got an electric car and my power goes off for 7 days, I can't even go to the grocery. I can't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Going back really quickly to the manufacturing aspect and all the dollars that are being spent by manufacturing to include a slight amount of what they consider renewable in their plans for their factories. I personally think that those dollars could be much better spent in microgrid technology, where they're capturing loss of energy that's being created by a process within the manufacturing facilities. This is like something that's relatively new that's kind of come to my attention. So a byproduct of what they're doing being captured and reused within the facility as an energy source, like that makes much more logical sense than spending these dollars on these renewables just because they want to be able to tell other people that they're using renewables on their location. Signaling. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I think, and that almost plays right back into the 46 Roughnecks, because if you stop and think, what do great leaders do? As a manager, when I was managing in Ohio and in West Virginia, I didn't want to tell my people how to get someplace. My strength was, as a matter of fact, I told you this the other day, I actually slept through a couple of my staff meetings. I had great people.
You told me a crazy story about how you would purposely say a terrible idea.
Well, the guy that
Are you testing people?
Yeah.
Well, what happened?
And they all agreed
Are they
with
paying
him.
attention?
The gentleman I replaced was a micromanager. So anytime anybody did something, they either had to figure out what he wanted, or they knew that this is how he wants it written. So they were trying to meet his guidelines. And all of a sudden I show up and I got a bunch of yes people. And I don't want yes people because I'm not that damn smart.
Nobody wants yes people. They're annoying.
And so to make sure that the first time I did this, it was crazy. We had like 15, 20 people in the room. And I came up with this just wild, crazy, stupid thing.
I'm going to do this. I'm stealing this idea.
Everybody's going around the room shaking their head, yes, yes, yes. And I'm thinking, oh, I am so screwed. We are in big duty.
I love it.
It finally gets to my assistant manager, JB, and he looks at me with this quizzical look. He says, Greg, do you really want to do that? I said, no, I don't want to do it at all. And you guys almost let me.
Oh my
No,
God.
the assistant manager is not a yes person.
No, he's not. Thank God.
We got to switch gears because I need to make sure that we cover something real quick. Okay. You wrote a book called Just the Frax Man, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you started out the book talking about Gasland and how people up in, what was it, the Bradford area lit their water on?
It was over around Scranton at Dimmick, I think.
Okay.
That's where they did the gas lamp.
Okay.
But
Well,
it was
they
in eastern PA, northeast PA.
Oh.
Where Cabot is now.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Right. But they could light their water on fire, right? And,
Absolutely.
And what Gasland was saying was that was due to fracking.
And to your point, yeah, Bradford's another area where you could probably light your water on fire.
But you could light water on fire down in Burning Spring in West Virginia
Exactly.
hundreds of years ago.
So-
that was the whole thing about
And that was
Burning
what
Spring.
was so upsetting is he made a big deal out of something that anybody that's in those areas knows that 30-foot gas is common.
Correct.
I mean, and there, we know that shallow coal has gas.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is we've been doing hydraulic fracturing since 1947. So, the whole fracking thing, when it first happened, we were, and I was one of the people that said, nobody will believe this. It's just too crazy. It's too off the wall. But the challenge, and I appreciate what you guys do, because if people aren't educated, if they don't know any better, if they don't know the truth, then left to their own devices, you never know what they're going to do. And I think that's the danger because, and the other thing the other misconception is when we hear about the Marcellus and the Utica, we always hear about fracking. Fracking's old. These big frack jobs, we were doing those in the 70s.
So can you explain to us why the methane does not, in fact, get into the water table? Like the logistics behind fracking and why it's...
the real, of course, there's shallow methane. And shallow methane is, you go deep enough. I mean, the sewer systems have methane.
Sure.
So methane is very common. And it's, but to get it out in quantities that are marketable, that you have to frack the well. I mean, and all wells need fracked. I mean, Russia fracks, China fracks, the OPEC nations frack because it's like putting tires on your car. If you can't frack a well, you don't drill it. It's just that simple. So fracking is a basic product, and the Antis did a masterful job of taking the F word and making it sound really bad. And they took something that we'd used for 70 years and made people think this is evil. But the beauty of it is, and the way we can kind of describe it, if you think about a typical well is 4,000 or 5,000 feet deep. If you're a water molecule, which would you rather do? If you're a person, if you're sitting at the bottom of a mountain, would you rather walk up 4,000 feet, or would you rather go down
The path of
or
least
go
resistance.
horizontally? I mean, I know if I get a choice, I mean, my daughter and I still run races. Would I rather run uphill or would I rather run flat? And the water molecule, same way. Sand, same thing. That water sand mix. Given the choice, it doesn't want to go up. It wants to go this way. So what we actually see, I mean, you can't, if I wanted to damage someone's water, I couldn't do it by fracking. I just couldn't because you can't frack. And then the other thing we learned from all the work we did with mines and coal bed methane. And by the way, we started fracking the coal in Virginia in the early 80s.
That was Consol down there.
Consol did that.
Yeah.
I worked with Dr. Thacker, and he actually went into those mines and he took pictures of what the fracks look like. And we know this, that at about down there at about 2,000 feet, you get a frac that goes up and down like your wall. When you get up to around 1,000 feet, those fracs literally, because of the stresses, they turn like the floor. They're pancake. So what it means is even at 1,000 feet, those fracs don't go up to get into
the water.
water.
So
They go
saying-
this way.
Yeah.
So here's the ground, here's the water table, here's where we frack. And these fracks only reach to like maybe
But they're not going up.
Right
They're going
here.
straight
Most
out
of
this
them go
direction.
up.
But like-
yes.
They'll go up a little.
they'll go up a little. And then they go like that. But there's still like this much space between the water table.
Oh my gosh, you're talking
And the
thousands and
fractures.
thousands and thousands of
So
feet.
what people are saying is that these fractures are coming all the way up to the water table. But so what you're saying is,
It can't, it physically can't happen.
and we can credit you as being an expert with this because you did fracking for Halliburton for 20 years, right?
Well, probably closer to 40, but that's okay.
Okay.
A lot. So, yeah.
Expert.
And we've seen the fracs. That's the other part of it. In those coal wells, we actually
That's really cool.
we
I
actually
never
saw-
thought about,
we actually
using
s-
that.
And we actually did some wells in PA. There was a place where one of the coal mines had this big, massive sandstone formation. And we're talking like 400 or 500 feet deep. And the longwall miner, when this thing came down as a unit, would hang it up, and they couldn't. They had a major problem getting the miner unstuck. So they called us in, and they said, "Can you frac this?" And what we did is, at that depth, we knew that the frac wasn't going to go up and down because that wouldn't help them.
It's going.
It went this way. So what we did is, in that, I don't remember how thick that rock was. It was maybe 100 feet or something. But we did put two fracs
Wow.
on it, and so instead of having one big massive rock, it went this way, and we basically sliced it into three
Yeah.
rocks. And they never had any binding problems. But we also knew when we did that, can you imagine we're fracking at 600 feet and we can't get into someone's water well at 100 feet? No way. It's simple, basic
impossible.
engineering. It's not theory. It's real live mathematics. You can calculate.
I was talking to somebody on the SPE board for Halliburton, and they have this new technology where they can see the fracks with fiber optics.
Oh, wow.
Not the full fracks, but it was pretty interesting.
It really is, and that's it. But the other thing that everybody needs to understand is the ability. That's what America has done. We know we can frack. We know we can do it without. And as a matter of fact,
But we've taken it to another level.
we have. And the difference is because and by the way, as a manager, when I'd get a call, someone would say, we got a groundwater problem. 100% of the time. 100% every time, because I chased these things down, it was always surface contamination. So which is worse? This frac that's going to come up from 10,000 feet deep, or someone dumping antifreeze or oil
Whatever.
or
Sewage or
or there's places where they've got the hog pen next to the damn
Yeah.
well. So imagine what that's like. So, but anyhow, but that's the beauty of it. And when we're able to drill these 25,000 foot wells, and now you frack that multiple times. That well is a world-class well because it's like having 100 wells coming out of one
Sure.
well, and you've eliminated so much surface damage. So I think that's what we're able to do. We are actually minimizing environmental issues.
So I had a friend who was in charge of fracking for Baker Hughes in Turkey, Northern Africa, all of the Middle East, and a couple other places. Saudi Arabia, and he was saying that they do about a stage a month. He said he was
What?
losing his mind with how bored he was.
how did they get their bonuses?
I don't know.
No stage bonuses there.
Yeah, and I mean,
Well, see, and
was a while
that's
ago, but
why
still.
when you think about it from a leadership standpoint, what do we do in this country? We trust our people in the
do.
field, and that's what I had to trust my folks when
well, their experience from there, they're top down.
Right.
They don't look just like you were talking about with England, but to put it into perspective, a stage a month there. How many do we do a day here?
Well, when I retired, we were
Yeah, it's
doing
usually
5 a
6
day.
shift, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and now, matter of fact,
Or
I did.
more.
It was interesting. I did a talk for the Adhesive and Sealants Conference last spring, and this lady called me and she said, I thought they want to know about manufacturing and everything, and she said, well, tell us about that. She says, but we want to know about fracking. I said, really? And she said, well, our members understand that their raw materials come from oil and gas wells that are all fracked. So And I'm thinking, I hadn't done a fracking presentation for several years. And I went back and educated myself.
Well,
Can you
because
imagine?
things change so quickly in our industry as far as technology is
And in
concerned.
6 years, I was flabbergasted.
How much we'd done.
How much we'd done, and it's all more efficient, more environmental.
Our
We got
electric frac fleets.
electric frac
right?
fleet. We got
Just-
sandbox
They're
now.
quiet.
We're
Didn't
not.
you
We
say
don't
they're
have dust
quiet
all
now?
over. Oh my
They are
goodness.
silent. It's kind of creepy. Like you don't actually know what's
Yeah.
going. It makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm
And
used to
Yeah, I
traditional
like
frac.
the noise.
we used to have 30 people. My frac crews had 30 people on location.
Oh, yeah.
I think now somebody told me there was 8 or something.
Penn Energy is collaborating with Women's Energy Network and letting some of our team go see a frac site.
Oh, that's
Or
fun.
not our team, our members of Women's Energy
Yeah,
Network.
You know,
absolutely.
it's so amazing, and you know that's why what you're doing, the education part's so important. Take a quick story. We do a lot of media at Show Crescent, and I got asked to be a guest on the University of Colorado student radio station. This was pre-pandemic, so I call and you know the producer. I get this hello, and I'm thinking these guys are smoked up.
Well, it is Colorado, so you know.
So I'm trying to think. I don't even know if this guy am I even communicating, and I'm talking about the same stuff we're talking about here, and all of a sudden he stops and he said, "Did you hear what he just said, dear friends?" And I'm thinking, where are we going? And he said, "You know, we don't like wells and we don't like petrochemical plants." But we like our skis and our climbing ropes and our cell phones and our cars.
And their pipes.
Yeah. And he said, I thought about that. And he said, did you hear what he said? Doesn't it make sense? If we're going to have those things, shouldn't they be made in the USA under our environmental law with our energy
Yes.
and our raw materials? And I'm thinking,
our
he
people.
got it. He absolutely got it.
Did you enjoy your time at Halliburton? I have a soft spot in my heart for Halliburton.
I did.
Yeah.
And the bigger challenge is, particularly early on, we worked crazy hours, obviously, but we always felt good at the end of the day that we were doing something. And even back then, we were working during the energy crisis. Now, they went through one of the challenges all companies do.
They're an older legacy company though. So they've been through many changes.
Oh, my goodness.
Gosh.
And I think they found their way because one of the challenges we had, there were a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and anytime those things happen, it gets a little ugly sometimes.
Absolutely.
But no, I mean, I still.
I look like this because I was on a frac location, so I'm like sweaty and gross. I do apologize.
We like it.
But my funniest Halliburton story, and it actually had to do with a crew from Michigan. So they were fracking for Cabot, and I'm an Ohio State fan. Now nobody's going to listen to our podcast because I support Ohio State, but I do.
Nothing wrong with them.
And I made a bet with them because it was Michigan, Ohio State. And I was like, okay, whoever wins this is going to have to wear the opposing team's hat when they leave pad for a month. So they were going to have to wear Ohio State hats when they left, or I had to wear a Michigan hat. And if Ohio State won, I got to take over the data van radio for 15. I have no idea what I'm doing out there, Greg, right? So we won, first of all. And I'm like, that breaker, little doggy. These guys are like, who is that? And what is going on? Like, we're trying to get stuff done. It was so much fun. And then as I'm leaving, I was like, now, I've really got you guys. They're like, what did you do? I said, I went to every red pickup truck on location and I put an Ohio State sticker on the back of your Halliburton truck. And they were like, you're kidding me. So shift change is like 6 o'clock, right? It's starting to get dark because it's like almost the winter time. About 6:15, my phone starts going and they're all texting me, haha, we knew that you never would do it. I said, look at the company man shack. And he's filming them because they're all with their flashlights like this for 15 minutes looking for the sticker that wasn't there on their pickup trucks. So I did get them. It was really fun.
Can I tell you
I
my
love
quick
those
frac
guys.
story?
Yeah.
Mine's super quick. So I was going to get paid $200 to put a dip of Copenhagen in my mouth for 20 minutes. They were going
You
to
would
pay
have
me.
puked.
I said, hell yeah, I'm doing that. I was in college. I was interning, but the safety guy was there and he wouldn't let me because he didn't want me throwing up in the van on the way home.
Oh my goodness.
I would have done it though.
So talking about all of this stuff, what do you personally feel it would mean for the U.S. and the world if we completely unleashed what we're talking about that we physically have under our feet?
Just turn the American oil and gas industry loose.
Yes.
If we did that, first thing that's going to happen is our gasoline prices are going down.
Wouldn't that be great, everybody?
I mean, and really, we'd have a cleaner planet. We got 24% of the people in India that are cooking with animal dung
Yeah.
and wood
In their homes.
in their home.
And who does that affect?
Women and children, because
Women
dad's
and
the way at
children.
work all day.
So they have to spend hours a day collecting this fuel, this biomass source, right?
Oh my goodness, yes.
And that's the women and children also.
And
Yeah.
what's already happening there, that gas from the Marcellus that's going to New Delhi. Matter of fact, my pastor is from India. And I asked him about, I just asked him about New Delhi.
Sure, because he's experienced it firsthand.
Right.
And he doesn't know what I do, what I did even as back then. And I said, "What's New Delhi like?" And he said, "Oh, it's really dirty, nasty." And then he stopped. He said, "But the last time I was there, the air was cleaner." And I said, "What are they doing, Father?" He said, "Well, they're using natural gas." Can you imagine the lives that saves by taking advantage of our energy and shipping it over there? We got a developing world, folks, that is desperate for energy. Why are we so cruel to not do that? Now take advantage of all these other resources.
They can choose not to pay attention. That's why. That's the only reason. That's the only logical thing that's happening.
Well, I think but as an industry, our challenge is we got to do what you're doing is continue to tell that story. And the people that are going to tell it aren't going to be the CEO of EQT or Range or any of these other companies.
It's real people.
It's folks like you and
and folks like you.
Well, whatever we can do.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned during the pandemic, we did like 70 radio shows because people may not because they don't understand fracking and they don't understand wells and petrochemicals. But everybody loves manufacturing. And one thing, I was on shows literally coast to coast, a lot of them in California, and people were openly, and we're talking about, you'd call them blue state or whatever, but it doesn't matter. They're all Americans. They hated China for now that they couldn't get gowns, they couldn't get, medical PPE, supplies. Yep. And they were really upset. And the one message that I took out of all those radio shows was, we want to make stuff here. I was on with, her name's Perry, just WVON Chicago, flagship station for the Black community. We might be on different ends of the political spectrum. We didn't get into that. But she asked me this. She said, "Mr. Kazera, what can we do? I get what you're saying. What could we do to bring manufacturing back to Chicago, to these vacant buildings?" Because she said this, "If we can bring manufacturing back to Chicago, we can create hope for our young people.
Yeah.
And if our young people have hope, we can end the gun violence in this city." And I am 100% with her on that. And that's the stuff that if everybody got out of the way, let's let it happen. Take advantage of all the resources we have, all the energy we have, and begin to take advantage of manufacturing to begin to make stuff. And we're already seeing it. But what can we do? If you think about China, it's not just the shipping. It's electricity. And where does their electricity come from? And I did the work in coal and methane. And right today, China has some of the gassiest mines in the world. And take a guess as they mine that coal, where that methane goes. So if I buy this from China, I am supporting that mining ability. All that methane is going straight to the atmosphere. And we're worried about something little nicky-nack here.
And it's completely negating the good stuff that we're making as far as reducing our emissions
and
here.
I think that's what we have to recognize as leaders. I mean, when our kids were beginning to walk, how did we work? If they fell, did I pick them up and whap them on the butt and say, "Now, doggone it, you stand up and don't you fall again"? No. I mean, when our daughter walked across the room for the first time, Linda and I said, "Yeah, great, good stuff." We praised them. And what we should be doing, instead of some of these folks saying, "Well, yeah, but we're down 20% with emissions," but no, not but. Praise that, encourage that.
Yes.
And we're going to find other ways to do the same thing. When you praise someone for what they're doing.
Positive reinforcement.
Right, exactly. So what we ought to be doing, we can do that. And the only solution that we have for China is American manufacturing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing right now. There's not
in order to do that,
nobody in Washington,
unleash.
nobody in a single environmental group has got a solution for China pouring garbage in India, pouring garbage in the atmosphere every day. They don't have a solution. And even if you want to go over there and protest, that's probably not a good idea. But if we make that same stuff here, and I got a call, I was at the airport, talking to this gentleman. They have a factory in his client is a factory in China. He said they want to shut it down, and they're afraid the government's going to take it anyways. But here's what they're making, Mr. Kazera. Can you find manufacturers in your region that can make these products? And so we're in process. We're already making the introductions.
Amazing.
And so they're going to shut that factory down and all the pollution that goes with it. And they're going to make those same products in this region. And these companies, probably the manufacturers can do it. They may have to add a shift. They may have to add some more machines.
More
they're
jobs.
going to add jobs. And they're going to be doing it with clean American energy. They're going to eliminate all the transportation. That's how you win this battle.
Absolutely.
See, okay, so one thing that you told me, so the implications of being able to unleash American energy, right? So you were just talking about people in Chicago and restoring hope. So that's really, I think, restoring hope in people who are in hopeless situations, the people in Chicago who, want to leave or all the violence there, but not just there, like a billion people, 10% of the people in this world don't have access to energy. What are those implications? 3 billion people only have enough energy to power their fridge. What are those implications? There are mothers out there who are looking for clean water for their kids, and they can't find them because they don't have access to the energy to power the machines to make the irrigation systems. So really what we're doing is restoring hope to these people who are in these hopeless situations across the world, not just here, but everywhere. And these are things that we don't think about because we live at this life of luxury. All of us do. From the poorest people in America to the richest, we're still in a more luxurious world than other places who don't even have clean drinking water or medicine.
That's an excellent point, because people that are well fed, those that energy is a peace tool, because why would someone want to go to war and risk what they've got?
Yeah.
If you've got nothing to risk. But I look at it bigger too, because at the end of the day, I believe in God.
We do as well.
And I believe that what we've been given here with this Marcellus and this Utica is a gift. And
It gives me chills again.
I know.
I mean,
me too.
I think when we're given much is expected.
Yeah.
And I don't want to face Almighty God. And he said, and him to look at me and say, Kazera, I gave you guys all this stuff, and you didn't even
Try.
You didn't even try. When people decided that they were going to keep it in the ground, you kept your mouth shut. Mm-hmm. You knew better than that.
And right now, the decisions...
I expect more from you than that.
Yes.
We've got this gift, and it's not just for us and for us to make
for
money
everybody.
with. It's for the world. Mm-hmm. We've got it here. And if, I can't get into the mind of God, but if you were God, and you were to pick one place on earth where you could put this gift, we know what it's like when you put it in the Middle East. We know what happens if you put it in Russia. We know what happens if you put it in China. Where would you put it where it would do the most good for the world?
Almost heaven.
Exactly.
If you were God, that's why they call it almost heaven.
I mean, you think about
West
that.
Virginia.
And I think we have to do it right.
Seriously,
We have to do it responsibly. We have to take care of the world. And I think what I look at is I coach high school soccer, and it's all about team. And if you put together a great team, and there's people that disagree with me, and that's fine, because out of disagreement, if we can talk and we can be civil and we can really have a discussion, because I learned, I was in a discussion at Vermont, they were talking about fracking, and it was phenomenal, because I made sure before we did that, this wasn't going to be a shouting match. If we're going to have a shouting match, don't waste my time. And we had real good discussions. And at the end of that, I learned things and everybody else learned things. And together, we can do so much when we're together. And I think our challenge for us as a country, without getting into politics, we need to find leaders that can bring people together. Because when you bring people together, this country can do anything. And that's the key, is finding the leaders. Doesn't matter what color their party is. It's all American.
So what we're taking from that is we have to fracture in the ground, but not fracture the American population. There you go. But it's true, right? And I agree with you 100%. We've really lost the ability to debate. And I think in debate, you learn your opposition's fears. And quite often when you know those fears, that gives you the knowledge to figure out how to allay those fears, right? If we're not talking, then we're not doing that. We're not capable of doing that. Yeah.
And it's kind of like in a marriage at the end of the day is if we can't talk, we have a deal that at least once a week we go out to our fire pit and back and we get a bottle of wine and we kill the bottle of wine and we'll spend an hour and a half out there, but we'll talk. And we don't always agree, but we always are able to. It's conversation. Right? We're able to move forward.
Idea.
Yes.
And then I learned what she was worried about. She learns what I'm worried about. But we have those discussions. And I think that's what we need to be having as Americans.
So speaking of debate and having these discussions and what we need to have in America, we have not forgotten, we do need more wine. Let's have wine debates where we drink wine and then debate.
Can I please just drink Miller Lite?
You can drink Miller Lite, and then Jen and I will arm wrestle. But one of these days, my dreams will come true.
Oh my God.
But we still want to have a debate with Alex Epstein. We still want to bring him here and have him debate somebody else who's opposing.
Are we calling somebody else out? Because the last time we called someone out, it means that Kevin Rothenbuehler from The Plains said that he would actually come. So if maybe it's like if you build it, they will come.
If you build it,
so we'll
Alex
just keep
Epstein
calling.
will come.
Alex Epstein will come. Yeah.
Yeah. No. But that's one of our missions for our podcast is to have a debate with Alex Epstein. We want to do it next year before elections.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, we're kind of coming to the end of do you have any final thoughts? We can't thank you enough. I mean, your viewpoints, your knowledge, your everything is just absolutely phenomenal. I could see several more episodes with you. So let me have you back.
Anytime. I've been truly blessed. And really, part of the reason we do what we do is after spending 40 plus years in the oil and gas industry, this is my opportunity to give back. Because I got a great experience, and from financial stability. I mean, but the people that I got to work with and still work with. I mean, they're still friends. We still work close. Because the difference now is, I was part of the production phase, but do you know what we've never done since I was a kid? We have never marketed our gas.
I agree.
I mean, think about it. There used to be, I grew up here, by the fact, I'm from Pittsburgh. You may not know that. I grew up in Penn Hills. But we used to have, the gas company come on and say, you should buy a gas dryer. We don't market our gas. Mm-hmm. Doggone it. We have a great product. Why in the heck aren't we talking about it? Why aren't we encouraging people to use it? Because we have it in abundance. And that's what our organization does, is we're bringing into industry here. And it just so happens that when we can produce, in other words, when we can deliver gas to manufacturers that's close to the wellhead, we eliminate all those transportation costs. And we can't, right or wrong, good or bad, we can't get our gas to the coast in a new pipeline. But we can bring European, Asian, and American companies here to expand. And they can make products, and they can ship those products all over planet Earth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's our opportunity. Is what we need to do as industry is work together and promote the product.
Yeah.
And we've got so many other challenges that, right now, my biggest headache as an economic developer, I thought it was going to be government or the antis or any number of things. It's not. The biggest challenge I have is when a company comes here and says, I like this site, or I like these 3 sites, and we can't get gas to them. Mm. And we're not talking about anything heroic. I mean, it's not like I got to go through a mountain, but getting gas to sites where people need it is a real challenge. And I don't know why it's that big a deal.
Limiting our free market. Mm-hmm.
It's so frustrating because great site, and we got a 4-inch pipeline, and we really need an 8. Well, so we have to, as industry, I think that's where as an industry, we need to work together and figure out, okay, because this isn't a regulatory thing now.
Sure.
It really isn't. I mean, it's a matter of us as an industry figuring out, okay, How are we going to get it there? And we need our utilities. But on the other hand, if I'm going to use $40 million a day, should I be paying the same price for that as I am as a homeowner?
It's bulk, right?
Yeah, so we need to take it. I mean, there's a lot of work we can do, but this is industry work that we can do, and we can work together because there is a big contingent, and we're going to Select USA next 2 weeks. We're already talking to companies from India, from Africa, from Turkey, and Europe that are interested in coming here. We've got several calls this week with companies that want to come here.
Well, it makes it more efficient when they come here and you manufacture where you produce. It makes it more efficient. It's good for us, but it also exponentially will increase the global GDP. And when we increase the global GDP, we increase hope.
Amen.
We can help everybody in the world.
Amen.
Right?
And I think, and the challenge, all three of our kids left West Virginia because there weren't jobs. Oldest went in the Navy. The other, they all happen to live in Maryland. They have all got good jobs. But when they graduated from college, there wasn't any place to go.
Which feeds back to our episode with Bill Lucas and junior achievement and how he's saying that schools are at 50% capacity because people are leaving. They're leaving our state. And they shouldn't. We've got the jobs, the high paying jobs here. We just unleash them.
We got to get that message out there. But I got to teach. I was an adjunct before I got so busy at Shield Crescent. I taught at Pierpont for 2 years, did a leadership course. And I asked my folks, I said, by October, I had them second year, these folks already had at least one or two $60,000 a year job offers lined up with a 2-year degree.
Wow.
And I said to them, and this is what it really means to us, and you think about West Virginia in particular, and Southern Ohio. I said, okay, folks, what are you going to do? You're making 20 grand now. All of them work, all incredibly young people. I said, what are you going to do with that money? You start getting those $60,000 a year paychecks.
Truck.
Exactly.
Lifted.
Yes.
Big rims.
That was number one.
I do like lifted
That was
trucks.
number one.
I can kind
That
of
was number one.
understand.
They knew exactly. They knew the color. They knew the wheels. They knew that was number one.
My kind of people.
What do you think What do you think number two was though?
House.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now
I was going to say drugs.
No. What's number three though?
I don't know.
That surprised me, but it shouldn't have. It's WVU Mountaineer season football tickets.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, can you imagine what do we want? We want, and I've got our doctor's son is working for Mark West, and he's got his pickup. His wife's got a new car. He's got 2 kids. He's got the house.
Now he needs the tickets.
He's working on the tickets. But wasn't that what we want? Young people that have great jobs that are staying here in the region, and they're buying houses. They're buying vehicles, and they want to support our universities.
Yeah.
What a deal. That's what manufacturing brings, and that's the stuff that really, and it gives family stability.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. We talk about, how important that is, the stability of the family. When you have that kind of stability, and it's, oil and gas, we do have these variations. Manufacturing tends to be a little more stable. So
Absolutely.
Great jobs, but it's all because of oil and gas, hydraulic fracturing, horizontal drilling, and the ability of this industry to do some phenomenal things. It's called leadership.
And plungers and artificial lift.
Yeah, all those things, all that stuff.
That was a plug for Sarah's company.
Epic lift.
Yeah.
Good stuff. No, we really do. We can do some great things for this region, and you give people hope. You can get them off drugs. You can end a lot of the
keep family
violence.
units together, everything.
All that stuff.
So
that's what we do.
Well, listen, this has been an amazing episode. We can't thank you enough
You're welcome,
for joining
guys.
us.
Appreciate you. Appreciate what you do.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that you appreciate us.
Yeah.
It's important to us.
Appreciation everywhere.
Absolutely. So this has been another episode of Energy First with
Sarah
and Jen. Thanks.